Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, thank you. So there was a comment made earlier about not rushing to use your ERP system. But the question was, you would rush to use your CRM, though, I'm sure, right? Yeah, okay. Just checking. When that comment got made, I went, oh no, here comes CRM right behind it. But thankfully it wasn't used. Well, as was mentioned, my name is Tiffani Bova. I am the Global Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce, which means I get the pleasure and opportunity to travel around the world and speak in front of audiences like this and talk about sort of what's going on in the market and trends that are happening really on a global basis. And so it's a pleasure to be here today with the partners at Globant, and I think all of you actually were kind enough to slip my book into your bags. So I think you guys have all gotten a copy of the book as well. So because I work at Salesforce, like everything I say today, just make your buying decisions based on what's readily available. Okay. So customer experience being the new battleground. Let me frame that up a little bit. Prior to being here at Salesforce, I was a research fellow at Gartner for a decade. And one of my comments and one of my projects that my team and I worked on was the prediction that the chief marketing officer was going to spend more than the CIO by last year. And so it sent off this flurry of acquisitions across the marketplace. And when that happened, we started to watch this trend about how customers will remember the experience that they have with a brand or a person much longer than the price they paid. And you may say, I don't really buy it or I don't understand it. So how many of you have ridden Uber in the last 2 weeks? Okay. How many of you remember what you paid? How many of you rode an Uber? How many of you remember what you paid? There you go. So let me explain what I mean. It's a job, point A, point B. Catch a taxi, catch an Uber. It's going to do the same thing for you, correct? So why is it that you would wait on the corner when it's freezing cold during surge pricing for an Uber as taxis drive by? Because you want that experience. It could be you don't have the currency on you in the country you're in, or like me, every taxi I get in, the credit card machine does not work. So that's always helpful that I can actually pay for the ride I'm in. The next is it connects directly to my expense system, so I don't have to fumble for the receipts and take pictures and fill it out anymore. And for me, because I do travel a lot, usually by myself, someone knows where I was last. So important to me. That's all experience-based. It doesn't have anything to do with the job from point A to point B. And if we got free coffee out here and there's a Starbucks across the street and we had maybe a 20-minute break, how many of you would walk past free coffee and go get a Starbucks? And that would be an experience play again. So we remember the experience. We're making brand buying decisions. We're making decisions on what brands we're going to engage with, how loyal we are, how we speak about them, how we share information about them socially, whatever we may do. We remember the experience we have. At a restaurant, average food with fantastic service will get you back. Average food with bad service, you will not go back. Fantastic food with bad service, you'll question if you'll go back. You'll say, you know what, let me give them a second chance. And so we make decisions all the time about experience. But last year, we saw this shift. We do a lot of research around what are customers actually looking for from the brands that they engage with. And it used to be, sorry that scrunched. It used to be that customer experience was actually the #1 sales metric now in the marketplace, which I find very fascinating. I grew up in sales, sort of where I cut my teeth in tech. I sold technology for almost 20 years before I got out of selling technology. And I can tell you that it used to be the metric was, sort of what was your revenue number? So, it's really basic. Now we're starting to shift the statistics and the metrics and the KPIs away from just being revenue-based to being more customer-based. And so in the 12-month period, though, we saw customer experience shoot up as the #1 thing that people were paying attention to. Now it's customer satisfaction. And I think part of that problem, quite honestly, is because we don't yet know how to manage customer experience from a metric perspective. How do you measure how your customers feel when they engage with your brand? How do you measure that? Is it Net Promoter Score? Is it churn? Is it lifetime value? What is it? And that touchy-feely kind of metric doesn't make executives feel good. Like, you know what? We're not hitting our sales numbers, but our customers feel great when they engage with us. Your executive's going to go, fantastic, hit the sales numbers. So satisfaction is something that now people are starting to say, that is something we can put our arms around and understand what it means if we are starting to improve the experience with our customers. So this fourth industrial revolution is in full swing. And the reason that I talk about this is because a lot of things underlying this, the mobile apps, IoT, cloud obviously, voice-activated assistants, and chatbots, are technologies that are being used very, very frequently in order to change this customer experience conversation between a brand and its customers. From a mobile app perspective, we pretty much live on, we go someplace and we go, oh, do you have an app? Let me get an app. Do you have an app? You don't have an app. You kind of go, you don't have an app? Like, how do you not have an app? Like I tell my dry cleaner all the time, instead of knocking on my door and I'm not home, if you had an app, you would know I wasn't home. Because you would ask and I'd say, nope, not home. But nope, they'll try and deliver 8 or 10 times. I go, I'm telling you, it will be so much better for you if you had an app. Or my dentist who like calls 4 times and emails me 3 times, like just push me something. And once I say yes, we should all be good. So we have this expectation now in a mobile perspective in order to have these engagements with brands. IoT for me is really interesting. Ford now has something where Alexa is embedded into the Ford, and they've done a deal with Starbucks. So you'll be driving down the road in your Ford, and your Ford will say, hey, Tiffany, it's 2 o'clock. I think it's time for your chai latte. Alexa, you're right. It is time for my chai latte. I'm a little tired. It's 2 o'clock. Would you like me to take you there? There's one 2 blocks away. Soon, she can take me there. But right now, she's going to sort of pop up directions and say, turn right, turn left. But now she's going to say, do you want me to order it for you? Yes, Alexa, I want you to order it for me. Now you're going to drive through the Starbucks. You no longer need to pull out money, your Starbucks card, or your app on your phone. Why is that? What is your new wallet? Your car. Your car is now your new wallet. So now you've just circled, from an IoT perspective, this very unique experience. Now the question becomes, who owns that experience? Does Ford own that experience? Does Amazon with Alexa own that experience? Or does Starbucks own that experience? Do you care? No. I want at 2 o'clock my chai tea latte. I want to order it. I want to drive through. So all of a sudden, the experience becomes very sort of underneath the covers of this invisible layer at the IoT layer of delivering these kinds of very unique and compelling experiences, powered by, right, and built upon everything the cloud can now give us. Voice-activated assistance is that communication I've just had. There was just an announcement a couple of days ago is your voice assistant going to be your new health check at home? It hears you sneezing. Do you want me to order you lozenges? Do you want some cold medication? I can order that for you. Do you want it? Do you have Prime? Do you want it this afternoon? Do you want to go and pick it up? Like, I'm not sure when it starts to become a little creepy. But I always say that when it's time for me to retire is the day that my scale in my bathroom talks to my Fitbit, locks my refrigerator, pulls the car up to take me to the gym. Then you know I'm out. Officially, I am officially out. And then the last is sort of chatbots. This is really changing customer service, right? We all want this 24/7, real-time kind of engagement with the brands that we work with. Does it need to be a human every time? No. And so can a chatbot give us this sort of low-level drumbeat experience with the customer to respond when and if they need it, and to give them the activities, the answers, the quotes, the return labels, whatever it might be around customer service. So this fourth industrial revolution is just powering all of this experiences and being transformed by these things. But the core pillars of a great experience are these. You want me as a brand to know you. You want it to be personalized when I engage with you. And remember, personalized does not mean creepy. So personalized is this fine line between know me, know what I've done with you recently, know what I may have from a product and service standpoint, know what is going on with my bill or my last customer service call. Treat me like you know me by the information that you have when and how I've engaged with you. And the last is this engagement conversation. This is starting to get tricky. Depending on where your customer sets lie, you have customers that just want to engage with you via Messenger or text messages or via social media. They're not going to pick up the phone. They're most definitely not going to send an email. And they're probably, never going to mail you anything. And so at the end of the day, how do they want to engage with you? And so consumers want you to know them, personalize it, and engage. Now you may say, that's all fascinating, Tiffani, but I am a B2B company, not a B2C company. And so here's my argument with that. We are all consumers in our day lives. We do not walk into work in the morning and take off our consumer jacket, put on the business jacket, and have a totally different personality. Well, most of us don't, but totally different personality. We have the expectation of why isn't it as easy as it is for me to order coffee, for me to get my printer fixed at work, or for me to get software, or for me to get a response to a customer service ticket. Why is it so difficult in my work life and not so difficult in my personal life? And you'd be surprised to know that the expectations between the consumer experience and the business experience is actually we all are expecting more from our business relationships than we do in our consumer lives. So this is not, wow, Tiffani, you've given all these consumer examples and we're a business company, they're not relevant to us. And you'd be wrong, because it is actually more relevant to you in the business scenario. So those are the things that we want from technology. But artificial intelligence is what's powering this. It changes everything. So yes, we have a product called Einstein, sort of a layer on top of everything we're doing across our multiple clouds. But as was said a number of times, it's really this invisible layer of things that are happening that consumers don't even realize have been happening for a long time. It's just getting a lot more into the consumer, more into the home, more into the car, into the things they do in their day-to-day lives versus just being reserved for what they do at work. So customers now are saying that they are more likely to view AI as revolutionary versus insignificant. They're starting to see the use cases play themselves out across all industries, especially in things like healthcare. Like if we can improve patient care and recovery and really cure some of the ailing diseases that have been around forever, I believe that it's somewhere in the data, we just have got to get to the answers and figure out how do we get to those answers and use it more appropriately across geographies and sharing data collectively, really, about the people and the societies and the customers that we share. 70% believe it's going to shift your expectations. Now you actually want someone to say, wait a minute, how do you not know I've done these 3 things with you? But you're surprised when someone doesn't know. And when they don't know, and you work where I work, and you know they're a customer, you're like, guys, I know you can do better than this because I know what technology you're using. How is it you don't know who I am? How is it you don't know what I need from you? How come you can't solve my problem? So just because you have the technology and the capabilities doesn't mean we're all using it and we're using it appropriately. And so many have said, I'm actually willing to give up my personal information to give you more information about me if you will give me a better experience because of it. So we're actually willing to give up more data about ourselves. So going back to the personalization, if we think it's actually going to give us better service. If we feel it's not going to give us better service or we're not going to have a better experience because of it, we start to hold on to the data. So AI is powering this underneath. Why is this? Because we've moved from businesses that were reactive. Something happens, I'm reacting. A customer calls in, their credit card's expired, they call in, I fix it for them. To then we said, no, we're going to become more proactive. Let me call out to my customer 90 days in advance of the credit card expiring, and then let me say, I'm going to get ahead of that so that your service is not delayed. So 90 days ahead, we're going to update your credit card. So I'm proactively reaching out. And then we move to this very predictive, where people who buy apples and oranges are more likely to buy pineapples. And so if you call in and you need something, and you have apples and oranges, the customer service representative will be much more likely to say, you know what? A company that looks like you, or a customer that looks like you, or an industry that looks like you, when people use both apples and oranges, they're much more successful when they start to think about how do we start using pineapples. And so that prediction means I'm willing to give you more information if the value comes back that the combination of those three things. So if any of you shop on Amazon, the recommendation engine, as an FYI, I've got a great story of it in the book, generates almost 32% of the revenue on Amazon.com. The recommendation engine, like the stuff you didn't know you wanted to buy when you showed up, like that stuff. I didn't know I needed a case and batteries and a stand and and training and a maintenance contract. All of a sudden you're like, jeez, I just went for one thing, 9 things show up. That's the prediction. People who like this, like that. The apples and oranges and the pineapple. And it drives tremendous upsell and cross-sell within your organization. So it really starts to shift, especially if marketers start to trust the AI to change decisions. So another comment that was made on stage this afternoon was data is the new oil. Completely agree with that statement. However, my caveat is I'm going to say an and you cannot drive up to an oil field and fill your car. So it is the new oil, but if you don't refine it, which is the analytics, and you don't take the intelligence, which is the petrol, data for data's sake is not worth anything. So marketers have a huge opportunity to double down on where they can really start to get lift across taking the data, analyzing it from a predictive standpoint, and then really taking that intelligence. I can't tell you how many customers I'll get in front of that'll have all of this data. They're using Einstein. They get all this intelligence, and then they make the same decisions because they don't trust the data. Or they say, no, my gut is right. I know my gut is right. I just need you to pivot a little bit, pivot a little bit, pivot a little bit. Start to trust it a little bit more and a little bit more. I do not mean like turn off the human, turn on the AI, and we're all going to be better for it. It is all about this combination. So AI in the future of work is this combination. I believe that it's human and machine, especially in the areas that I talk about, which is sales, marketing, and customer service. Those three specifically, I've read a lot of predictions from others about how the sales forces, 2 words, of the future are going to be cut in half, right? Salespeople are all going to lose their job, like that prediction. I couldn't have disagreed with it more 6 or 7 years ago, and I disagree with it equally as much today. Because I actually believe, and we've actually found in our research, that AI is actually not only driving a little bit of insecurity, but it's actually creating additional headcount from a sales perspective. We actually see sales teams, sales forces, increasing in size as they get more productive. So let's talk about how unproductive they are. 57% or so of sales forces overall globally miss quota. 57%. 65% of their time, an individual seller's time, is spent on non-selling activities. So now you wonder why they're not hitting quota. So if I can improve the non-selling times and take back 15, 20% of their time, and I can take the 57% of them that are missing their quota, and by the way, there's an asterisk next to that as well. Some of them missing their quota is because the quota was set improperly to begin with. Like I get some of it is that. That also can be improved around sort of forecasting and pipeline management to make sure you're actually setting the quotas appropriately. So I believe that the headcounts in this particular case will go up. So the value is in this addition, right? 76% are adding staff. So if you're thinking we're going to plug in AI and then get rid of salespeople, please don't look at it that way. This is not an either or, this is absolutely an and. So the final thoughts for me. The first thing I'd say is that the future of everything we're talking about today, especially in sales service alliances and marketing, has to be contextual in its nature. It has to be data-driven. We have to look at what we know, look at what we think is going to happen, model it out, do some scenario planning, test it again. Think about how do you become much more agile and lean as you work through all these changes and, more importantly, all the opportunity AI gives you. You have to establish this customer-centric. I have a fantastic presentation on doing this, and I asked the question, how many of you think, it's rhetorical, you don't need to raise your hands, are product-centric? And people will raise their hands, and then if it's an individual company's meeting, I actually have everyone close their eyes because management gets very mad if they've been trying to say we're customer-centric and yet all the people think they're product-centric. But then I say, how many of you think you're customer-centric? And then I ask, how many of you have voice of the customer teams? So it was almost like the Uber question. How many of you, use Uber, and how many of you remember what you pay? We think we're customer-centric, but we don't ask our customers any questions. It's like, well, okay. I don't know how that works. But so establish an outside in. The next is refine your relationships. Think about it differently in the engagement in your entire ecosystem of the people you work with. Select key performance indicators, the metrics that will drive the right behavior. Look at the metrics. Do you need to add customer service? Do you need to add a net promoter score? Do you need to add customer experience? What do you need to add to get people to do the right thing? Using data in this way, in a very predictive fashion, right? From data to analytics to predictive. And then drive towards this very intimate sales engagement, right? If we're in business, we do two things. We make stuff, we sell stuff. I'm oversimplifying. But at the end of the day, you can make the greatest stuff. If you can't sell it, it doesn't matter. If your customers don't value it and don't understand what you're trying to do, it just won't matter. So with that, my last thought is in the future, these customer-driven organizations will totally reset the value engagement equation. The only way you can get to that is by using the technology. It isn't just AI. It's AI and everything else we have at our fingertips now that I've just talked about and you're going to hear about throughout the remainder of the day. So with that, please enjoy the book that's in your bag. I'll be here for a little bit during the break. Happy to sign in if you'd like. And I appreciate Globant having me, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.